The barefoot interview. The morning sun filtered through the tall glass windows of Sterling Industries headquarters, casting long golden rectangles across the polished marble floor. Sarah Mitchell stood at the entrance, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched the revolving doors spin, releasing a steady stream of impeccably dressed candidates into the gleaming lobby. She clutched her worn canvas bag tighter, feeling the weight of the manila folder inside her portfolio, her college transcripts, her letters of recommendation. Everything she had worked for over the past 4 years was compressed into those thin sheets of paper. Sarah had woken up at 5 that morning, in her small apartment across town. She had pressed her best white blouse, the one she saved for special occasions. She had paired it with her only blazer, a cream-colored piece she had found at a thrift store 2 years ago. The gray pencil skirt had been a graduation gift from her mother. Together, the outfit made her look professional, capable, ready. But her shoes were a different story. They were the same black flats she had worn throughout her final year of college. The left one had a crack along the side where the synthetic leather had finally given up after countless walks across campus, through rain and snow and summer heat. The right one had a sole that flapped slightly when she walked, creating a soft slapping sound with each step. Sarah had tried to glue them back together the night before. She had used superglue, duct tape, even black marker to cover the worst of the damage. But this morning, as she had stepped out of her apartment building, the heel of her right shoe had simply fallen off, clattering down the concrete steps like a mockery of her ambitions. She had stood there on the sidewalk, checking her phone. The interview was in 45 minutes. The bus ride would take 30. She lived in a neighborhood where stores didn't open until 9, and it was barely 7:30. There was no time to buy new shoes, even if she had the money, which she didn't. So Sarah had made a decision. She had slipped off both shoes, tucked them into her bag, and continued toward the bus stop in her bare feet. Now, standing in the lobby of Sterling Industries, surrounded by 32 other candidates who all looked like they had stepped out of a corporate catalog, Sarah felt the cold marble beneath her feet and wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The other candidates wore designer heels and polished Oxfords. They carried leather briefcases and spoke in confident voices about their internships at Fortune 500 companies. Sarah recognized a few faces from her university students who had never spoken to her, who had always seemed to exist in a different world, one where opportunities came easily and shoes never fell apart. "Attention, candidates," a woman's voice called out from across the lobby. A tall figure in a sharp navy suit approached, holding a clipboard. "Thank you all for coming to the final round of interviews for the junior strategy analyst position. I'm Rebecca Torres, the HR director. We'll be calling you in one at a time. Please wait here until your name is called." The candidates shifted, arranging themselves in small clusters. Sarah noticed the looks, the quick glances down at her bare feet, followed by raised eyebrows and poorly concealed smirks. Did she seriously come to a corporate interview without shoes? Someone whispered behind her. "Maybe she thinks it's a beach resort," another voice added, followed by quiet laughter. Sarah felt heat rising to her cheeks, but she kept her eyes forward, her chin up. She had not come this far to let embarrassment defeat her. She had graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business analytics. She had worked 2 jobs to pay her tuition. She had spent countless nights in the library, studying until the security guards gently reminded her it was time to leave. She belonged here. "Shoes or no shoes, Sarah Mitchell," Rebecca called out after what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Sarah walked forward, her bare feet silent against the marble. She could feel every eye in the lobby following her. The whispers grew louder. Someone laughed outright. Rebecca's expression remained neutral as she led Sarah down a long hallway lined with photographs of the company's history. They stopped in front of a large oak door. "The CEO will be conducting the final interviews personally," Rebecca explained. "Mr. James Harrison. He likes to meet the final candidates himself." Sarah's stomach dropped. The CEO? She had expected a panel of managers, maybe the department head, but the CEO. Rebecca opened the door and gestured for Sarah to enter. The office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat a man in his mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, standing and extending his hand. "James Harrison, please, have a seat." Sarah shook his hand firmly, the way her father had taught her, and sat in the leather chair across from his desk. She placed her bag beside her and folded her hands in her lap. James Harrison sat back down and opened a folder of her application. He studied it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "I have to ask," he said finally, looking up at her. "Did something happen to your shoes, Ms. Mitchell?" Sarah took a breath. She could lie. She could make up a story about a wardrobe malfunction, about shoes being stolen from her car. But something in James Harrison's eyes made her choose honesty instead. "Yes, sir," she said. "The heel broke off this morning as I was leaving for the interview. I didn't have time to buy new ones, and I didn't have another pair that would be appropriate for this setting. I made the choice to come barefoot rather than not come at all." James Harrison nodded slowly. "I see, and what did the other candidates in the lobby think of that choice?" Sarah hesitated. They laughed, sir. Some of them made comments. I'm sure they did, he said, leaning back in his chair. Tell me, Ms. Mitchell, why did you apply for this position? For the next 45 minutes, Sarah forgot about her bare feet. She talked about her passion for data analysis, her innovative approach to market research, her ideas for improving customer retention strategies. She walked James through her senior thesis, which had proposed a new model for predicting consumer behavior in emerging markets. James Harrison asked sharp questions, challenging her assumptions, pushing her to defend her ideas. Sarah rose to meet each challenge, her mind sharp and focused. This was the world where she belonged, not the world of expensive shoes and effortless privilege, but the world of ideas, of problem solving, of creating value through intelligence and hard work. When the interview ended, James Harrison stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. Ms. Mitchell, he said, still facing the window, I've interviewed 32 other candidates today. Every single one of them had perfect shoes, perfect resumes, perfect interview answers, practiced and polished until they shone. Do you know what they didn't have? Sarah remained silent, waiting. Resourcefulness, he said, turning to face her. The ability to make difficult decisions under pressure. The courage to show up even when circumstances aren't ideal. The honesty to admit when things go wrong. He walked back to his desk and picked up her folder. 20 years ago, he said quietly, I showed up to my first job interview with a coffee stain on my tie. I had spilled it on the train, and I had no time to go back home and change. I walked into that interview expecting to be laughed out of the room. Instead, the interviewer told me that anyone who shows up despite obstacles is someone worth taking a chance on. James Harrison extended his hand to Sarah. Welcome to Sterling Industries, Ms. Mitchell. The position is yours if you want it. Sarah felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. She shook his hand firmly. Thank you, sir, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion swelling in her chest. I won't let you down. I know you won't, he said. And Ms. Mitchell, use your first paycheck to buy yourself a good pair of shoes. You've earned them. As Sarah walked back through the lobby, her bare feet barely touching the ground, she passed the remaining candidates. They were still there, still waiting, still confident in their perfect shoes and perfect appearances. But Sarah knew something they didn't. Success wasn't about having everything perfect. It was about showing up, even when things fell apart. It was about having the courage to walk forward. Even when the path was uncomfortable, it was about knowing that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was take the next step, no matter what you were wearing on your feet. The revolving door spun, releasing Sarah into the bright afternoon sunlight. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, feeling the warm concrete beneath her bare feet, and smiled. She had done it, not despite her circumstances, but because of how she had chosen to face them, and that, Sarah realized, was the real interview all along.